also joined here in New York by Batya Ungar-Sargon. She is the author of Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, and is also deputy opinion editor of Newsweek. Batya, thanks so much for coming on Outsiders. I'll bring in Rowan and Rita in a minute, but I wanted to talk to you about this historic Trump victory, and particularly the way that this has basically solidified now the movement of America's working class away from the Democrats. Tell us about it.
That's exactly right, James. Thank you so much for having me. And anybody who's been watching your show, U.S. Report, would have seen me talking to you about this class revolution that's happening throughout the United States over the last 10 years of the Trump administration and the Trump era, if you will. And what we saw here in this election, in this victory for Trump this week, was the consolidation of the multiracial, multi-ethnic American working class around Donald Trump, and a big repudiation of the Democrats who had abandoned labor throughout all of this time. So Trump made gains with black men, Hispanic men. He won Hispanic men outright. The working class further consolidated around him, and it was the elites, specifically college-educated women, who really went for Harris.
And how much of this is a repudiation of Democrat economic policies, which have been, as Trump has always talked about, hollowing out the middle and working class, giving a lot of money to the coastal elites? And how much of this has been a reaction against the way the Democrats basically started bolting on more and more social and progressive and woke concerns onto their party, to the point where it just didn't speak to these people anymore?
So those are two sides of the same coin.
Yep.
The reason that the Democrats talk so much about these radical far-left cultural issues is because they have abandoned labor economically to cater to college-educated elites. So they have replaced an economic agenda for labor with a social agenda for the rich. So they're really two sides of the same coin. I would say that every elite or rich person who left the Democrats and voted for Trump, it was on cultural issues. But for working class Americans, by and large, I think it was the economic piece of things.
Yeah, but the funny thing too is that in the reaction, Batya, in the wash up to all of this, what we've been seeing is, blaming, and the last time when I played somebody who was blaming Latino men and calling, just saying really racist things about them from the left, and saying, these people are misogynists, they're patriarchy type people, and, that's why they wound up voting for Trump. How do they not have a moment of self-introspection and reflection about, just what has happened here? Because what's happened here is pretty big, and I don't think they get it.
They definitely don't get it. You see a lot of people trying to revert back to the 2016, these are just deplorables. They want a fascist. That's why they voted for Donald Trump. The reason that they can't get it is because to get it would be to understand that it is their fault, that their contempt for these Latino men, their contempt for average, hardworking, working-class Americans is the thing that drove the working class away from them and right into the hands of Donald Trump. But I think it goes deeper than that. Donald Trump effectively picked up what was the Democrats' economic and social agenda from the 90s, which was tailor-made for the working class. So he really did develop an agenda that catered to their needs, and they recognized that in him.
So now Trump is coming into office next month, January 20th, his inauguration. We're already starting to see some feints around where this is starting to move. How confident are you that he'll be able to actually make some of these policies a reality? And are you seeing any connection now between Trump, the new Republican Trump movement, I guess, and the labor movement? Have there been any sort of formal tying up there between the unions and Trump? We saw some of that start in the campaign. Is that going to continue?
So we saw that Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters Union, 1.3 million strong, spoke at the Republican National Convention at the invitation of Donald Trump. He gave a blistering 25-minute speech about protecting workers' rights. The Democrats then punished him and refused to allow him to speak at the DNC, right? Turns out 60% of Teamsters voted for Trump. I think there are going to be a lot more movements like that because the rank and file of these massive labor unions are in the Trump camp. They are working class men and women who just want what's best for their children. And so I think we are going to see a rapprochement there. We're going to see labor taking a more active role in Republican politics. And I think that's really exciting.
But this is more than a 4-year project. This is a 10, 20-year project. And we're talking about, bringing back manufacturing and all of that. How confident are you that that's not just a pipe dream, that we really can bring back manufacturing to the United States, create, again, high-paying jobs in some of these new industries, like space would have some very high-paying jobs, but other ones as well.
I'm very confident, and the reason I am is because we ran an op-ed in Newsweek by Donald Trump about a month ago in which he had a really good plan for this. His number one promise was, if you are an American manufacturer, company, corporation, CEO, and you reshore manufacturing, you bring a factory from somewhere else back to America, he will drop your corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. He said he's going to be appointing a manufacturing czar to travel around the country and attract back these manufacturing bases. He's going to create a booming economy, and I think that all of this is going to help. Plus the fact that when you have tariffs, when you have, trade wars with countries that are screwing over American workers, it becomes more expensive to ship things back here. There are costs associated with manufacturing elsewhere, and I think Trump is very, very keen and acutely aware of all of this.
And we already saw Steve Madden, I think, this week, the clothing manufacturers say, 45% of their manufacturing is going to slash out of China because of this. So corporate companies are responding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what about just finally, before I let you go, class is a big thing in all of this here. And how much of, is part of the reason why the Democrats can't understand what's going on? Because if they did acknowledge it, they would lose that kind of elite superiority that they had created by using woke issues and so on to pummel the rest of America into, essentially silence and acquiescing to their supremacy.
I think it's that. I think it's also the fact that the donor class of the Democratic Party, as exemplified by people like George Soros, is very, very knee-deep in open borders. They do not believe in borders. They do not believe in nation states. They do not believe in America, and they do not believe in the American worker. But that is the whole Democratic donor class. So they would have to repudiate their own donors. And while Donald Trump was willing to do that for the American people, I don't see anyone on the left who's willing to do that.
Batya, Ungar-Sargon, we're going to have to leave it there. Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your time.